Eli had lived alone on his ranch for so many years that he sometimes forgot what it felt like to have another voice echo across the open land. Every morning, he woke before the sun, stepped outside, and watched the first light climb over the horizon. The world was quiet, except for the soft snorts of his horses, the rustling of dry grass, and the distant cry of a hawk gliding in the sky. For most men, this silence might feel lonely. But for Eli, it had become a companion he understood. He lived with patience, discipline, and a quiet hope that someday life might offer him something more. That hope grew stronger during the past few months, because he was waiting for a woman from the East, a bride he had agreed to marry through exchanged letters. Her name was Anna, a schoolteacher who wanted to start a new life far from the busy towns. Eli had prepared a small room for her, fixed broken boards in the house, and even planted new flowers along the path near the porch. He wanted everything to be ready for her arrival. One afternoon, the air felt heavier than usual, and the sky seemed too calm. Eli was riding along the old trading path, looking for a missing calf that had wandered off earlier. His horse, Dusty, trotted steadily as Eli scanned the dry land. He was used to long rides and never rushed, because rushing only caused mistakes. When he reached a cluster of large rocks near a shallow stream, Dusty suddenly paused and flicked his ears forward. As if sensing something unusual, Eli tightened his grip on the reins and leaned slightly to the side to get a better look. At first, he thought he saw a shadow still and small, resting near the stones. But when his eyes adjusted to the shifting light, he realized it wasn't a shadow at all. A woman was sitting there, her back leaning against a large rock, her head lowered, her dark hair falling over her shoulders. She wore traditional Apache clothing, though the fabric looked worn, as if she had been traveling for days. Her posture was weak, and she didn't move even when Dusty's hooves stepped on the pebbles nearby. Eli felt a wave of concern rise inside him. He guided his horse slowly forward, careful not to startle her. The last thing he wanted was to frighten someone who was already vulnerable. When he got closer, he saw her shoulders rise and fall in shallow breaths. She was conscious, but barely. He stopped a few steps away and spoke gently, his voice steady like calm water. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" The woman raised her head slightly. Her eyes were brown and tired, but alert enough to show she understood him. She didn't answer at first. It was clear she was trying to gather strength, trying to decide whether he was someone she could trust or someone she needed to fear. Eli kept his distance, giving her space. "My name is Eli," he said softly. "You look exhausted. Can I help you?" She blinked, her eyes lowering again, as if even holding them open required too much energy. Her lips parted, and she whispered something too faint for him to hear. Eli slowly stepped off his horse and took a water canteen from his saddle. He left Dusty standing and approached the woman with slow, careful steps, making sure she could see his hands. He placed the canteen on the ground near her but did not push it toward her. He wanted her to choose whether she accepted help. After a moment, she reached for the canteen with trembling fingers. The motion told Eli a great deal she was dehydrated, hungry, and possibly frightened. She raised the canteen to her lips and drank a few sips before lowering it again, breathing out weakly. Eli felt relief, seeing that she trusted him enough to drink. "What happened?" he asked quietly. She closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering the strength to speak. When she finally answered, her voice was soft, but her words carried the weight of fear and survival. "My name is Tala," she whispered. "I was traveling with others, but we were chased. We ran. I got separated. They didn't come back." Eli listened without interrupting. He knew the land could be harsh, and dangers could appear without warning. Hearing that she had been chased made him tense inside, but he kept his expression calm so she wouldn't panic. "How long have you been out here alone?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "I don't know. Maybe 2 days? Maybe more." Eli could tell by her condition that it might have been even longer. Her clothes were dusty, her hair tangled, and her hands carried small scratches from trying to move through the rough brush. Her feet were sore, as if she had walked miles without rest. "You shouldn't stay out here," he said gently. "Let me help you get somewhere safe." All. Tala looked at him again, her eyes full of uncertainty. She didn't know who he was. She didn't know what he wanted. But she also didn't have the strength to walk another mile. The fear of being alone in the wilderness was stronger than the fear of trusting a stranger. Finally, she gave a small nod. Eli helped her stand, carefully holding her arm so she wouldn't fall. Her legs wobbled under her weight, and she leaned against him without meaning to. He supported her gently, guiding her step by step until they reached Dusty. He helped her climb onto the horse, making sure she was steady before mounting behind her. They rode slowly toward his ranch. Tala sat quiet against him, her back lightly touching his chest. Eli kept his arms loose, making sure she had space and didn't feel trapped. Dusty walked with steady confidence, as if he understood the fragile person on his back. Along the way, Tala's head slowly rested against Eli's shoulder. Not out of trust, but because her body was too tired to hold itself upright. Eli felt a mix of worry and determination. He wanted to get her somewhere safe, give her food, water, a place to rest. But he also felt something else, something quiet and unexpected. A feeling that this moment, this discovery of a stranger in the wild, might change something in his calm, predictable life. When they finally reached the ranch, Eli helped Tala down and guided her to the shade of his porch. She breathed deeply, her body relaxing for the first time in days. Eli quickly fetched food, water, and a blanket. He handed her a plate and stepped back so she wouldn't feel watched. She ate slowly, taking small bites, her tired eyes lifting every now and then to study him. She saw a man with sun-worn skin, broad shoulders, and quiet eyes that did not burn with judgment or greed. He moved with patience, not eagerness, and she felt a small flicker of safety she hadn't felt since losing her family. Eli knew nothing about Tala except her name and the fear behind her voice. But he knew she needed rest, so he made a soft place for her near the window where she could feel the breeze. When she finally lay down, her eyes closed almost instantly, her breathing becoming slow and even. Eli stood there for a long moment, watching her with concern but also with respect. She had walked through fear and danger, survived the wilderness, and still carried strength in her eyes. He didn't know why life had guided him to her that day, but he felt that helping her was the right thing to do. He stepped outside, looked at the wide land, stretching endlessly around him, and took a deep breath. He didn't know that Tala's arrival would shift the quiet rhythm of his life. He didn't know how much that single moment beside the rocks would matter. But he knew one thing. Clearly, this meeting was no small chance. It was the beginning of something neither of them had expected, something that would grow in the quiet spaces between fear and hope. And as the sun slowly dropped behind the hills, the ranch felt a little less empty than it had that morning. Tala woke the next morning to the soft sound of horses moving outside and the gentle clinking of metal tools. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Her body felt warm, her limbs heavy with rest, and the air carried the smell of fresh hay and wood smoke. She opened her eyes slowly and saw sunlight slipping through the wooden window, drawing long, bright lines across the small room. Only then did she remember the man who had helped her, the horse she had leaned against, and the ranch where she had finally found shelter after days of fear and exhaustion. Eli was outside working, but she could hear him through the thin walls. Every sound he made was calm. No rushing, no shouting, no heavy footsteps like the men she had learned to avoid. She sat up slowly, pulling the blanket closer around her shoulders. For the first time, in what felt like forever, her body didn't ache with hunger or fear. She still felt tired, but it was a normal tiredness, like she had worked hard and slept well. Her stomach growled softly, reminding her that she needed food again. Eli stepped inside a moment later, holding a tray with bread, dried fruit, and warm tea. When he saw Tala awake, he paused at the doorway, as if asking permission to enter. She nodded, and he walked in quietly, placing the tray near her. "You should eat," he said in a gentle voice. "There's plenty more if you need it." Tala looked at the food with gratitude but also hesitation. She wasn't used to kindness from strangers, especially from white men. Her people's history had taught her to be careful, to protect herself. But Eli did not move closer or try to force anything. He simply stepped back, giving her space to breathe. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice still weak but steady. Eli nodded and turned toward the door. "I'll be right outside if you need anything." Tala watched him go, noticing again the quiet strength in his movements. He didn't look like someone who wanted something from her. He looked like someone who had learned to live with honesty. After she finished eating, she stepped outside, holding the blanket around her shoulders. The morning air was cool, and a gentle breeze brushed through her hair. She saw Eli near the horses, brushing Dusty with smooth strokes. The horse leaned into his hands, enjoying the attention. Tala walked slowly toward him, unsure if she should help or simply watch. Eli noticed her approaching but didn't speak right away. He gave her a small nod of greeting and continued brushing the horse. "Did you sleep well?" he finally asked. "Yes," she said softly. "Better than I thought I could." "That's good," he replied. "You needed rest." Tala hesitated before speaking again. "You helped me, even when you didn't know me. Why?" Eli paused, lowering the brush. He turned slightly toward her, his expression honest. "It didn't matter if I knew you," he said. "You were in trouble. That's reason enough." Tala felt something shift quietly inside her. People did not usually help without expecting something. But Eli wasn't like the men who chased her. He wasn't like strangers who saw her people as threats. He was simply a man who believed in doing what was right. His words felt heavier than the brush in his hand. He stepped away from Dusty and pointed toward a stool near the barn. "You can sit if you want. You don't have to do anything today." Tala looked at the stool and then at Eli. She didn't want to sit idle. It felt wrong to rest while he worked. Her mother had always taught her that helping hands were respectful hands, and she wanted Eli to know she wasn't someone who relied on others without giving something back. "I can help," she said firmly. "I want to." Eli studied her expression carefully. He seemed to understand that offering her work wasn't about forcing her, it was about giving her dignity. He nodded and handed her a small brush. "You can help with the horses if you feel strong enough." Tala stepped toward one of the calmer mares and began brushing gently. The horse lowered its head, accepting her touch. Eli watched her for a moment, noticing the careful, respectful way she moved. She worked quietly, focused on the task, as if grooming the horse helped her settle her own thoughts. They worked side by side for a long time, speaking only when necessary. But the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It felt natural, like two people who didn't need to fill the air with words. When the horses were done, Eli guided her toward the small vegetable garden behind the house. "If you want to help more, you can pick some tomatoes," he said. "Only the ripe ones." Tala nodded and kneeling quietly among the plants. Her fingers traced lightly over the tomatoes until she found the ones ready to harvest. The simple work gave her peace, grounding her after the chaos she had escaped. While she worked, Eli fixed a broken fence not far away. Tala kept glancing at him. The way he moved, steady, unhurried, thoughtful, spoke more than his words. She had met strong men before, but strength without kindness was something she feared. Eli was different. His strength held patience, not force. By midday, the sun grew warm, and Eli called her inside for lunch. They ate quietly, bread, stew, and fresh water. Tala found herself watching him more than she expected. His face was serious but soft at the edges, like someone who had known loneliness but learned to live with it. She wondered what his life had been before their paths crossed. She wondered if he had a family, someone waiting for him, someone he waited for. Eli noticed her thoughtful expression. "Are you feeling all right?" he asked gently. "Yes," she replied. "Just thinking." He nodded but didn't press her. That was another thing she liked. He never pushed her to speak more than she wanted. Later that afternoon, he saddled Dusty and prepared to ride to the nearby fort. Tala looked at him with worry. "You're leaving?" she asked softly. "Only for a short time," he explained. "I sent word yesterday about what happened to you. The fort might have news about your group. I want to know if they're safe." Tala's heart tightened. She didn't want to hear bad news. She also didn't know if she wanted to hear good news, because good news might mean she would have to leave the ranch and the quiet protection she had found here. "I will come back before dark," Eli added. "You'll be safe here." Tala nodded, though she didn't want to be alone. But she trusted him enough to stay behind. As soon as Eli rode off, she walked around the ranch, touching the fences, the porch railing, the old wagon near the barn. Everything felt steady, dependable. She had lived through too much uncertainty, and standing here made her feel anchored for the first time in months. She waited for him the whole day, her eyes drifting toward the horizon every few minutes. When Dusty finally appeared in the distance, carrying Eli back to the ranch, Tala felt a breath leave her chest, a breath she didn't know she had been holding. Eli slowed the horse near the house and stepped down. "Any news?" Tala asked nervously. Eli shook his head. "Not yet. But they're looking." She nodded, feeling strange relief. She wasn't ready to say goodbye. As the sun set, they sat outside near the steps. The sky glowed orange, then pink, then deep blue. Eli didn't speak much, and Tala didn't either. But she felt something gentle forming in the quiet space between them. It wasn't love. It wasn't promise. It was connection. Soft, unexpected, and real. She looked at him and saw a man who didn't judge her, didn't fear her, didn't treat her as less. He simply treated her as someone who mattered. Eli looked at her and saw someone with courage hidden behind tired eyes, someone who had survived so much yet still carried kindness in her voice. Neither of them knew what would happen in the future, but both felt that this day, working together, sharing silence, trusting each other, was the beginning of a bond neither had planned. But both were slowly feeling in their hearts. The next morning began like any other on the ranch, with the soft light of dawn touching the sky and the cool wind passing through the fields. But something felt different to Eli. He had grown used to silence. Yet now he found himself listening for the light footsteps of Tala, moving around the kitchen, or the quiet humming she sometimes made when she cooked. Her presence, gentle and careful, had slowly filled the empty spaces of his home. He didn't understand how quickly he had become aware of her, but now he felt it, with every sunrise. Tala stepped outside just as Eli finished feeding the horses. She carried a small basket, ready to pick herbs for the day's meals. Her face looked more rested, and her steps felt steadier. She had begun to regain her strength, and the shadows of fear that once lived in her eyes were slowly fading. But today, something unsettled her. She didn't know what it was, but her heart felt restless, like a bird unsure if it should take flight or stay in the shelter it had found. Eli noticed her expression. "You all right?" he asked gently. "Yes," she replied softly. "Just thinking." She didn't say what she was thinking. But Eli didn't push her. He respected her quietness. He understood that some thoughts needed time before they were ready to be spoken. Before either of them could say more, a group of riders approached the ranch from the distance. Dusty lifted his head, ears pricked forward. Tala froze, her basket clutched tightly in her hands. Eli stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he recognized the uniforms the riders were from town, carrying mail and messages for ranchers in the area. The lead rider stopped near the fence. "Eli Carter?" he called out. "That's me," Eli replied. "We got a message from back east," the rider said, pulling an envelope from his satchel. "It came through the relay station this morning. Thought you'd want it quick." Eli stepped closer, his hands steady, but his heart uneasy. He knew the letter had to be from Anna, the woman he was supposed to marry, his bride, to be, the woman whose arrival he had once waited for with hope. He took the letter slowly, nodding in thanks. As the riders turned their horses and left, Tala stood still, her breath caught in her throat. She didn't know what the letter said, but she knew it carried meaning. She had seen Eli fix his house, repair broken steps, and prepare extra blankets. He had not said the name of the woman he expected, but she knew he had promised himself to someone long before she arrived. Eli opened the letter carefully, scanning the lines with growing stillness. Tala watched from a distance, trying to read his expression, but he kept his face calm. When he finally folded the letter, his shoulders lowered slightly, not in anger, but in sadness mixed with acceptance. Tala approached him slowly. "Is everything all right?" she asked. Eli looked up at her. His eyes held a truth she did not expect. "She's not coming," he said quietly. "Her journey is delayed. Maybe for a long time. She doesn't know when, if ever, she'll be able to travel." Tala felt something deep inside her shift. She didn't know whether it was relief or guilt. She didn't want to smile at his disappointment, but she couldn't stop the warm flicker in her chest. Still, she kept her voice steady. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Eli nodded. "It's all right. I knew something might happen. Life doesn't always follow the plans we make." Tala looked down, her fingers tightening around the basket. She felt as if she were standing at the edge of something she didn't fully understand. The ranch had become a safe place for her, a place where she didn't feel judged or hunted. But she had always expected that her stay here would end when his bride arrived. Now, the future felt unclear. "I should leave soon," she said quietly, almost to herself. Eli's head snapped up. "What? Why?" "You were waiting for someone," she replied softly. "You made promises. I don't want to be in the way." Eli took a step toward her. "Tala, you are not in the way." She looked into his eyes, searching for the truth. He wasn't lying. But she felt a fear she had carried for years. Rise inside her the fear of being unwanted, of being a burden. She had lost her family, lost her group, lost everything that made her feel rooted. She didn't want to lose the one place where she felt safe. "You helped me," she said in a trembling voice. "You gave me food, a place to sleep. You didn't have to. I don't want to cause trouble for you." "You're not causing trouble," he said firmly. "You needed help. Anyone with a decent heart would have done the same." "But they didn't," she whispered. "Only you did." The wind blew softly, carrying dust across the ranch. Eli didn't know what to say. He could feel her fear, her uncertainty. He didn't want her to leave, not because he needed help, but because he had grown used to her presence. Her quiet steps, her gentle voice, her way of working beside him, all of it had become a part of his days. "You don't have to go anywhere," he said gently. "Not until you're ready. Not until you want to." Tala looked at him for a long moment. "But what if your bride comes later? What if she still wants to marry you?" Eli took a slow breath. He hadn't told Tala the whole truth. The letter didn't simply say, "The journey was delayed." It said Anna was reconsidering the marriage entirely due to personal problems, uncertainty, and fear of starting a new life so far away. "She may not come at all," he said honestly. "And even if she did, it wouldn't change the fact that you're safe here." Tala lowered her gaze. She felt warmth spread through her chest. but also confusion. She didn't know how to explain the emotions building inside her. She didn't want to leave, but she didn't want to steal a place that wasn't meant for her. That evening, she worked quietly near the fire, preparing supper. Eli sat nearby, fixing a saddle strap. They didn't talk much, but the silence felt different, heavier, filled with unspoken thoughts. Tala glanced at him several times, noticing the way he kept looking at the letter he had folded and set on the table. She wondered what memories he had shared with the woman from the East. She wondered if he had imagined a life with her. She wondered if she had accidentally stepped into a space meant for someone else. Later, when the fire was crackling softly, Tala stood and walked toward him. Her heart was beating fast, but she didn't want to sleep with unanswered questions filling her mind. "Eli," she said softly. He looked up, his eyes calm. "Yes?" "You said I can stay," she whispered. He put down the saddle strap and leaned back slightly, studying her face. "Because you need safety," he answered. "And because I want you to have a chance to rest, to heal. You've been through enough." "But what about you?" she asked. "What do you need?" Eli hesitated. It was the first time anyone had asked him that in years. He wasn't used to speaking about himself. But Tala waited, her eyes gentle, patient. He began, then stopped. He tried again. "I guess I need company. Honest company. Someone who doesn't pretend, someone who speaks with heart." "You do that." Tala felt her breath tremble. She didn't expect such words from him. Her throat tightened with emotion she tried to hide. She stepped back, unsure what to say. But before she returned to the fire, one truth escaped her lips. "I don't want to leave your life if I don't have to." Eli looked at her steadily. He didn't smile, didn't move closer, but his eyes softened in a way she hadn't seen before. "You don't," he whispered. The night settled quietly around them, but inside both of their hearts, something had shifted, something gentle, unexpected, and powerful enough to change the future neither of them had planned. The days that followed moved slowly, like warm wind passing over the fields, carrying with it a strange new calmness neither Eli nor Tala could easily describe. The ranch felt different now. It was no longer just a place of work and chores. It had become a small world shared by two people who had not planned to cross paths, yet somehow found themselves walking the same quiet road. Tala woke each morning feeling a little safer, a little more rooted. She was not used to staying in one place for long, not since losing her family. Movement had become her way of survival, walking, hiding, running when danger came. Cooking, gathering herbs, grooming the horses, brushing dust from the porch, preparing water buckets, each small task made her feel like she belonged somewhere again. Eli, on the other hand, found himself watching her more than he expected. Not out of curiosity, but out of quiet admiration. There was a strength in her silence, a gentleness in her hands, a softness in the way she treated the animals. She didn't waste words. Yet when she did speak, her voice carried a truth he rarely heard in people. He had lived years surrounded by emptiness. But now the sound of another person moving through his home felt like comfort. One afternoon, the sky grew dark with thick clouds as a storm approached from the west. Eli hurried to secure the animals, while Tala collected tools that could blow away. The wind grew strong, lifting dust and leaves into the air. Tala's hair whipped behind her as she tried to tie down the loose tarp near the barn. Eli rushed toward her. "It's too strong out here," he said, raising his voice over the wind. "Let me handle that." Tala shook her head. "I can help." A sudden gust pulled the corner of the tarp free, snapping it wildly. Eli reached out at the same time Tala did. Their hands brushed just a small touch. Barely a second, but it froze both of them in place. The wind howled around them, yet in that moment, neither moved. Their eyes met for one breath, two breaths, long enough for both of them to realize what neither dared to admit. Eli stepped back quickly, clearing his throat. He grabbed the tarp and tied it down, avoiding her gaze. Tala stood still, her heartbeat quickening in a way she didn't understand. That single touch had carried more meaning than any words they had spoken so far. When the storm finally passed and silence returned, the ranch felt washed clean. But something within them had changed, even if neither admitted it. Inside the house, Eli lit a small lantern, and Tala prepared warm food. The glow from the lantern softened the shadows on their faces. Tala moved quietly, but her mind was loud with thoughts she couldn't settle. She had told herself she would leave once she felt strong enough. But the stronger she became, the harder the thought of leaving felt. She handed Eli a bowl of stew, and their fingers touched again only lightly, but enough to send a spark through both of them. Tala quickly pulled her hand back, lowering her eyes. Eli stared at the bowl for a moment, then at her. "You don't have to be afraid," he said softly. "I'm not afraid," she whispered. "You look like you're carrying a worry," he said. Tala hesitated, then sat down slowly near the fire. The flames reflected in her eyes as she spoke, her voice gentle but honest. "I don't know what happens next. I don't know where I belong." Eli placed his bowl down and sat across from her. "You belong wherever you feel safe." "And if the only place I feel safe is here?" she asked, her voice barely above a breath. Eli's heart tightened, but he didn't show it. He wanted to tell her she could stay forever if she wished. But he feared saying too much. He feared making promises his heart wanted before hers was ready. "You're welcome here," he said. Tala looked at him, her eyes deep with emotion. "And what if I need more than time? What if I don't want to leave at all?" Eli felt his breath catch. The fire crackled softly between them, filling the silence with warmth. He reached for words but found none. He didn't want to say the wrong thing. He didn't want to push her away, nor hold her too close. "Tala," he said gently, "you've been through so much. You deserve peace. And this ranch, it's a peaceful place. If that's what you want, you can stay." She studied his face carefully. His eyes held sincerity, but something else too, something he was trying to hide. She could sense it, even if he didn't speak it. She looked down at her hands. "I don't want to stay only because of safety. I want to stay because—" She stopped, unable to finish. Her heart thudded painfully, her throat closing with emotion she wasn't ready to release. Eli leaned forward slightly. "Because what?" Tala shook her head. "I can't say it yet. I don't know if it's right." Eli nodded slowly, understanding more from her silence than from her words. He didn't push her. He simply sat near her, letting the fire warm both of them. The next day, Tala helped Eli fix a broken saddle near the barn. She held the leather straps while Eli tightened the buckles. Their hands brushed again, just a simple touch, but enough to make both of them pause. This time, Eli didn't step away. He held the saddle in one hand and looked at her gently. "We keep doing this," he said quietly. "Doing what?" she whispered. "Finding each other's hands." Tala's cheeks warmed with embarrassment and confusion. "It's an accident." Eli smiled softly. "Maybe." They worked side by side without speaking, but their closeness filled the air with quiet tension neither could deny. The ranch felt like a place suspended in time, just the two of them, the whisper of leather and the beating of two hesitant hearts. That evening, Tala walked to the porch alone. The sky was full of stars, stretching endlessly above her. Eli stepped outside a moment later, standing beside her without speaking. They watched the sky together. The silence, comfortable, calm. After a long time, Tala finally spoke. "I used to think I would never feel safe again." "You're safe here," Eli said softly. She looked at him, her heart trembling with a truth she could no longer hide. "I know. And I don't want to lose that." Eli met her gaze. He didn't move closer, didn't touch her, but something in his eyes changed, something deep and gentle. "You won't lose it," he said quietly. Tala breathed slowly, letting his words settle inside her like warm sunlight. She wasn't ready to tell him everything yet, but she knew the truth was forming in her heart, stronger every day. She didn't just feel safe with him. She didn't just feel grateful. She felt something much deeper, something she wasn't sure she deserved, yet couldn't push away. As they stood together under the quiet sky, both sensed that their lives were no longer two separate paths. Their steps were moving closer, their hearts learning to beat in the same rhythm, even if neither had spoken the full truth aloud. Something was growing between them, something gentle, something real, something that would soon change everything. The morning after the stormy night felt unusually quiet, as if the world itself was waiting for something to happen. The sky was clear, the air cool, and the ranch calm. Tala stepped outside the house with a soft blanket around her shoulders, the breeze brushing against her face. She looked around, searching for Eli, and found him near the corral feeding Dusty. There was something different in the way he stood, his shoulders slightly tense, his eyes distant. Tala watched him for a moment, feeling a strange heaviness grow inside her. The connection between them had been growing for days, gentle and quiet like a small flame. But she feared that maybe she had imagined it, that maybe the feelings she carried were only her own. Eli turned and saw her standing there. He gave her a small nod, but his usual warm smile did not appear. Tala walked toward him slowly, unsure of what was bothering him. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. Eli hesitated before answering. "I'm fine." Tala nodded, though she could sense something deeper behind his words. She stepped closer, her voice steady but gentle. "You look worried," he sighed, rubbing Dusty's neck as if gathering courage. "A rider came early this morning." "Before you woke up?" Tala's heart tightened. "From the fort?" "No," Eli said. "From back east." A second letter came. "Eli." Tala felt the world tilt slightly. She didn't want to hear it, but she had to know. Eli nodded slowly. Tala lowered her eyes, her fingers gripping the blanket tightly. She felt something cold settle inside her chest. She feared the words that letter might carry. She feared he would say he must prepare again for another woman. The woman he had waited for long before Tala had ever appeared on his path. She's coming now?" Tala whispered, though the words scraped against her heart. Eli looked at her then, his eyes softer than she had ever seen them. "No, she isn't coming. She's not coming at all." Tala lifted her eyes quickly. She didn't know what to feel. Relief? Sadness? Confusion? She waited for him to continue. Eli let out a slow breath. "She says she's sorry. Her life changed. She wants to stay near her family. She can't make the journey. She hopes I understand." Tala scanned his face, trying to read his emotions. He didn't look broken. He didn't look angry. He looked peaceful. Maybe a little sad, but mostly calm. "I'm sorry," she said again softly, but this time the words felt different. Eli shook his head gently. "You don't need to be sorry. I've had time to think. Maybe it wasn't meant to happen." Tala nodded slowly. She didn't know how to ask what she truly wanted to know. She didn't know how to ask where she stood in his life, now that the path ahead of him was open again. So she stood quietly, clutching the blanket close, while Eli stared out at the open land. After a long pause, he turned to her. "Tala," he said slowly, "you said something last night. Something about staying. Something about not wanting to leave." Her cheeks warmed at his words. She remembered every breath of that moment, every trembling heartbeat. She felt exposed now, as if he could see straight through her. "I did," she replied softly. Eli stepped closer. Not too close to frighten her, but close enough that she could feel the warmth from his presence. "Did you mean it?" Tala looked into his eyes, the wind brushing softly between them. She felt her heart tremble. But she didn't want to hide anymore. She didn't want to run from the truth inside her. "Yes," she whispered honestly. "I meant it." Eli exhaled slowly, as if those words were the ones he had been waiting for. He lowered his gaze for a moment, then looked back at her with a gentle seriousness she had never seen before. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. "Something I should have said sooner." Tala's breath caught. She waited. "When I helped you that day, I thought it was just one good deed. One moment where I could do the right thing." He paused. "But every day after that, I started seeing you not as a stranger I rescued, but as someone who brought meaning back into this quiet place. Someone who brought life back into it. Into me." 17. 17. Tala's chest tightened with emotion. She tried to speak, but her throat closed, and no words came. Eli continued softly, his voice steady but full of feeling. "I didn't want to say anything too soon. You've been through so much. I didn't want to push you or confuse you. I wanted you to heal first. But Tala, the truth is, I don't want you to leave either. Not now. Not ever. If you don't want to." The world seemed to blur for Tala. She felt tears form, though they were gentle ones. Tears of relief, of hope, of disbelief at how life had changed. She took a step closer. "Eli, I thought I was just someone passing through your life. Someone who didn't belong in your world. You belong more than you know," he said quietly. "And I don't want you to think you were replacing someone else. You're not. You're not a second choice. You're not a mistake. You're someone who came into my life exactly when I needed a reason to keep moving forward." Tala's heart filled with something powerful, something warm, strong, and steady. She felt the weight of her own fear melt away. She reached out slowly, her fingers trembling, and touched his hand. It was the first time she had done it by choice, not by accident. Eli didn't pull away. Instead, he gently turned his hand and held hers, his touch soft but sure. She looked up at him with eyes that glowed like warm firelight. Her voice came out quiet but full of certainty. "It's not a mistake," she whispered with all the strength in her heart. "I'm yours." Eli's breath caught. Her words struck him deeper than he expected, filling every quiet part of his heart that had once felt empty. He stepped closer. Their hands still joined, their lives now intertwined by more than chance. "You're mine," he said softly. "Only if you choose it." "I choose it," she whispered. They stood there for a long moment, listening to the wind move across the land, feeling the steady rhythm of each other's presence. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. It was quiet, gentle, and real, two souls choosing each other with honesty instead of promises written on paper. As the sun rose higher, Eli placed his other hand gently over hers. "If you want," he said softly, "we can build a life here together. A life that belongs to both of us." Tala nodded, tears slipping silently down her cheeks, not from sadness, but from a peace she had not felt in years. "I want that," she said in a trembling voice. "I want to stay. I want this to be my home." Eli smiled, then a warm, genuine smile she had never seen fully until this moment. "Then it's your home. And it always will be." And it... They walked back toward the house slowly, hand in hand, carrying with them a new beginning neither had planned, but both had chosen. The ranch no longer felt like a place for one man. It felt like a place for two hearts, learning to heal together. A place where kindness, courage, and quiet love grew naturally, like wildflowers after rain. And as Tala stepped inside the home she now shared, she knew one truth clearly. She had not found safety by accident. She had found Eli. She had found belonging. She had found love that arrived without warning, but fit her heart like it had been waiting for her all along.